Hey everyone, in Adventures in Airtime here, and today we're talking about ride concepts that failed. Now, there's many different ride manufacturers, and every now and again they try to make something different or new or exciting or weird or crazy. They all do it at one point or another, except maybe B&M don't really do much out of their normal comfort zone. So yeah, today we're talking about that, and hope you enjoy. So the first one that I find really interesting is the Vekoma Tilt Coaster, which is called Gravity Max at Legoland, and that's in Taiwan. I really would love to have a go on one of these because there's only one type of this ride. It's made by Vekoma, and it's a Vekoma Tilt Coaster. And basically it's a ride where it has a normal lift hill. At the top of the lift hill, you go straight out, and then the bit of track that the train parks on tilts 90 degrees down, and then it drops you. So it's got like a holding brake on like a tilting bit of track, which is really cool. I'd love to get out there and have a go at it because it's the only one that exists. I believe there is a park building something similar right now, and I think there might be a dueling one in China, but it's not Vekoma, and it's a bit hit and miss to whether it's actually open or if both sides are working. So there is only one Vekoma tilt coaster in the world. The second one, it's a model called Intamin Sky Jump, and that is a vertical drop tower made by Intamin, obviously, and it's where you sit around a big tower around the edge of it in rows of 4. It takes you up to the top of the tower, and then you're sat upright like you normally would be on a ride, and then when you get to the top, it tilts you so you're facing down 300 feet. And that ride actually exists. That's called Falcon's Fury. That's at Busch Gardens, Tampa. They only built one of these, and it was kind of a failure before it even opened. They had a lot of technical problems with it. I actually went to Florida to Busch Gardens just after it was due to open, and it didn't open, and I was very disappointed because I was looking forward to it. I think it was the tallest ride I'd ever been on at the time. It probably still is, actually. And yeah, I was very disappointed because it got delayed by a few weeks. They had loads of problems, and because I was really looking forward to it, I was looking at update videos all the time, update photos and everything, and I was so excited, and then it was broken. So a couple of years later, we went back to Florida, we went on it, and it's okay. It's a bit of a failure, really. The idea of facing down flat is quite good, it is quite intimidating, but the problem with the ride is the drop is just so slow. Like, it doesn't feel like you drop that far. You don't really get the stomach feeling when you drop down a proper sharp drop tower. The S&S drop towers make me feel a lot more give me a lot more airtime. The one at Falcon's Fury doesn't really feel like that. It kind of feels a bit slow. So it's great for how you feel at the top when you're looking face down, but other than that, the drop's not that good. And they've only built one of them, and it doesn't seem like anyone's planning on building another. The next one is S&S Thrust Air, and you've probably not heard that name before because that's another rare ride. The first one they built was Hypersonic XLC at King's Dominion, and then they built another one at Fuji-Q Highlands in Japan, which was called Dodompa, and now it's called Dodompa, I think. Dodompa, I think. it's a bit confusing.
Paramount's King's Dominion near Richmond, Virginia introduces another breed of scream machine in which we humans can enjoy our worst fears. Hypersonic XLC opened in March 2001, claiming the fastest acceleration of any ride in the world.
This is basically sort of an extreme launch coaster, and it's powered by air, which S&S are known for building air-powered launch roller coasters. I think it was built in the early 2000s, the first one, and it's basically like a launch tower turned on its side. The trains, they use air-filled tyres, so it's like you have actual rubber car tyres rather than on most roller coasters you have like mostly steel with a bit of nylon or I can't remember what the actual coating is, but like a coating around the edge, but these are actually air-filled tyres like you'd get on a car. And the reason I think this one failed is because it was so aggressive, the launch is so intense, and I imagine the maintenance costs for something like that are probably quite high, considering how violently it launches you. And yeah, these rides were also known for having a big top hat, so you went straight up, did 180 degrees, and then straight back down again. And I imagine that wore the trains quite a lot too, because looking at videos of when Hypersonic was new, it looks so intense. And I rode I rode that ride in Fuji Q last year, and it was really good, but it is very intense. And they've replaced the big top hat with a big loop now, a big, almost completely round loop, which is still fun, but it's not the same, I imagine. You don't really get the airtime. So yeah, they've not built one for a long time. I doubt they'll ever build one. It's probably discontinued now, but it is a really cool ride, and if you ever get the chance to go to Japan, make sure you go to Fuji Q Highlands. The next ride is the Intamin Wing Rider, and again, you might not have heard this name, but it was basically a first wing coaster that we saw, and that's where instead of you sitting on top of the track, you're sat at either side of the track. The first one they built was Furious Baco at Port Aventura in Spain, and they've not built one since. And they had a lot of problems with that ride, apparently. When it opened, it was open for a while, but I've heard they've had lots of issues with trains and longevity of the ride. It was like I wouldn't say the first ride actually, because there's the Arrow 4D coaster, but the first ride of its type where you've got two fixed seats at either side of the track, and it also inverts and it's launched. So it's quite a lot of strain on something where the seats are either side, whereas when they're on top, there's not as much strain. But if you've ever been on a ride like that, like a B&M wing coaster or a Furious Baco or a 4D coaster, the outside seats like vibrate a lot because they're outside, they're away from the wheels quite far. So there's a lot of vibration and a lot of stress on the train. So Intamin went out there and they did it before B&M, but unfortunately they've only built one again. It's the only one of its type, Furious Baco. I've never been on it. Apparently it's quite rough. The ride doesn't really do a huge amount. It launches, it does some twisty turns, and then it does a barrel roll or two, I can't remember. But yeah, it looks fun, but only one of its type. I imagine Intamin won't take the risk again with that. The next one is S&S Freefly, and there's again only one of these in the world, and it's called Tranan, and it's at Skara Summerland. This one's a weird one. It's sort of a mix between the B&M wing coasters and the S&S/Arrow 4D coasters. So instead of the seats rotating like forwards and backwards, on this, if you imagine the track is where my head is, the seats go like that. So you go above and below the track, which is very weird, and I don't think anything else exists like that. And again, they've only built one. S&S are known for being a bit out there. They'll build stuff that's a bit different or extreme, but this one hasn't really worked out because they've not sold any more. That one's been built for quite a while, and yeah, it's just disappeared, sort of thing. Cool concept, but hasn't really worked out for S&S, unfortunately. So the next one is a bit of a a bit of a cheat one, really. This one's the Arrow Pipeline Coaster, which doesn't actually exist anymore. It was a concept. There's videos of it online. It's basically a ride where you're sat in between the rails. So if you imagine my head is the seats again, the rails are like here, and you're sat in the middle. So the wheels and the seats are the wheels and the track are either side, and the car is in the middle where you're sat. So you're sat in between the rails. This was like a concept that Arrow tried out. There's some videos of it. Alton Towers were apparently going to be building one, but they looked at it and they realised it wasn't going to be good. It wasn't going to be fun. It was a bit weird and not really fun whatsoever. So that was a concept that was designed, built. They built a test ride of that, and it just went nowhere.
After years of design work, from sketches on paper to computer graphics to scale models and now to reality, it all comes down to this: the day of the first test.
Oh, there it goes! Hooray! Oh, man! Beautiful. Beautiful. Hey! Woo-hoo! Hey! Plan! Hey!
The next one is a Vekoma Stingray. Again, this is very rare. There's only one that exists of this, and I'll have to look at the name for a second. It's the Great Wheel Park of Suzhou in China. Only one of those exists, and it's basically, if you've ever seen the Vekoma flying coasters, it's similar to that. And it's where in the station you get in and you sit down, and when the train dispatches, you sit back, so you're laid on your back, and then you go up the lift hill and it twists you round to flying. So basically you're laid on your back for the lift hill, and then when you get to the top it flips round, and then you're in a flying position, like on a B&M flying coaster. And yeah, it doesn't look good. It's like a compact version of their Flying Dutchman. But again, they've built one, so it hasn't gone down too well with parks. Don't know if that's price, I don't know if that's just the appeal of it. I imagine it's not that great, those rides where you're laid on your back, because I've heard lots of bad things about that, so that's probably partially due to it. No one else seems to have really mastered the flying coaster concept where on B&M, the B&M flying coasters where you're sitting it normally in the station, it flips you back up so that you're facing down in a flying position. Because that's a lot more comfortable, to be honest, than laying on your back looking at the sky. The last one, which I was fascinated with when I first saw this, is the S&S Screaming Squirrel. Kind of infamous, really. It was when S&S were trying to come back and build stuff again, really. They started with the Screaming Squirrel, which is, you're in little cars, a little kind of like a Wild Mouse sized car with 4 people, and the track, it has like a steep lift hill, and then you go across the top, and then the first drop is 180 degrees like that, and then the next bit of track is upside down track in a straight line, and it does 180 degrees back to flat again. So you're basically going straight down, hanging upside down, and then going back down again, and then it's all in a straight line. There's not any turns to the actual main part of the ride. And 3 of these were built, and only one of them is still running. One of them's Sequoia Adventure, one of them's Manowar, and one of them's Afterburner. And only Manowar is still running. They were built in Russia and China, and yeah, they're apparently not good whatsoever. I've never been on one, but they just look painful. If anyone's been on rides where you're hung upside down a lot of time, they're not fun. It's just not comfortable, unless you've got really comfortable restraints, but it's not nice. So yeah, there's some rides that failed. I hope you found it interesting. If you want to see any more of these types of videos, suggest some rides that you think are worthy of this kind of list, and I'll put something else together and we'll do a number 2. Hope you enjoyed it. See you later. Bye!